Well, good day, and welcome to this first substantive lecture in this course on drought. My name is Richard Byron Cox, and I'm head of the UNCCD's Capacity Development and Innovations Office. As I said in our first lecture, this course is about drought and its importance to you, why you should know about it. And this today is the lecture where we actually begin to speak about drought. In this lecture, want to answer two questions. Firstly, what are droughts? What really is a drought? And secondly, the importance of their duration, meaning their time, and intensity. Okay, so we are basically looking at those two things. Now, like everything else, drought have different definitions. And if you were to go to Google or if you were to go to a dictionary, you might see definitions like this. A drought is a period of time when an area or region experiences below normal precipitation. What is precipitation? Well, that just means rain or snow or sleet, you understand? You might see another definition which would tell you that there's a lack of adequate rainfall, right? Or you might see a definition which says drought is a period where conditions are drier than normal and therefore there's less water, okay? So there are many definitions of the word drought, what it means. However, for this course, we're not really hung up on how one defines drought scientifically. This is not the purpose of this course. The purpose of this course is for you to understand a very simple fact, which is this: that drought ultimately leads to a shortage of water, right? Potable water, water that you drink, water you use for cooking, washing, and so on, right? We're not talking about water in the oceans, okay? And it's a period of time which ultimately results in us not having enough water to do the things that we want to do, and therefore it affects our lives. That's the key issue here, okay? Scientifically, as I've said before, there are many different definitions of drought, but don't be too concerned with that. Be more concerned with what it actually means to your life. Now, drought are characterized in different ways, right? But in general, there's a deficiency, right, of water, of precipitation over a period of time. That's the first thing. So what you see is that the amount of water, the amount of potable water and so on that you need is not there anymore. It has decreased significantly, okay? And that shortage will therefore affect life on land, not just our lives, the lives of plants, the lives of animals, right? So it affects life and living. And this is why drought is so important to us. Why? Because water is essential to life. And that is why one of the Sustainable Development Goals is Goal 6, which deals with water. Because you cannot run a school or a hospital or anything of that sort without water. And so this is why we are concerned with drought. Now, what you have to understand about the drought is this, that a drought is a natural hazard. In other words, it is a natural thing that occurs. It's not so much that we do anything or that we have control over this. And that is why it is virtually impossible to predict droughts. It's virtually impossible, right? It's natural. It comes and it goes, okay? Now, it usually starts with less rainfall and more absorption of water because of a rise in temperature. So you have two things. The first is that there's less rainfall or less snow, less sleet, you understand? So less water is actually coming, right, to the soil, to the land. But outside of that, there's usually a rise in temperature. And that rise in temperature causes what? It causes a lot more of the water in the soil, right, to evaporate. And so ultimately, therefore, what you have is a situation where there is less water, okay? Now, the thing about drought, and this is interesting to note, that drought progresses slowly. Droughts are not like other hazards. For example, let's take an earthquake. An earthquake hits you bang, you know, and in less than a minute sometimes, all this destruction happens, okay? Or let's take a hurricane. I'm from the Caribbean, and so I know a lot about hurricanes. At least I've experienced them, right? It comes across the Atlantic and bang, it hits you for 3, 10, 15 hours, mashes up everything, and that's it. A drought is not like that. A drought is like a creeping hazard. It slowly but surely comes to you. You understand? And that is the danger. So that you wake up one morning and you realize no rain has fallen. Next day, a month later, still no rain. 2 months later, still no rain. 3 months later, still no rain. You understand? It slowly hits you. And as that is happening, it has effects, which we will discuss in another lecture, right? Now, what I just said tells you something else about drought. It could be seasonal. So for example, it could happen over 3 months, over a particular season, or it could last for years. That's the duration of drought. It could be a season, or it could last for years. And of course, depending on how long it lasts, the longer it lasts, is the greater the negative impacts. That is something that you have to understand. But outside of that, there's the intensity of drought. In other words, how sort of aggressive, for want of a better word, that drought is. Sometimes you have a drought and it lasts for 3 months. But during that 3 months, you might get a little bit of rain, you know, once in a while. Let's say 2 days, 3 days in those 3 months. And so therefore, the water on the land is recharged a little bit. Your reservoir is recharged a little bit. But sometimes the intensity of the drought is so great that there's no rain at all. None whatsoever for a very long time. And outside of that, the temperatures just keep rising and taking more and more water out of the soil. That's the intensity of drought. And of course, the greater the intensity, you understand, is the greater you're going to suffer. It's the greater impact it's going to have on us. Okay? So this is what happens as regards duration and intensity. Those two things combined, if there's great intensity and if it's a longer period, then we're in more serious trouble than if it's not so intense and if it's not so long. Okay? And guess what? We all know of climate change and what is happening. And the science shows us, the science predicts that in years to come, because of climate change, drought is going to be even more serious. We're going to have more, and they're going to be longer, and they're going to be more intense. So we're in trouble. This planet is in trouble. Let us face this reality. And this is why we all need to know about drought. All of us, without exception, because it affects us directly or indirectly. There are some regions of the world, and we will discuss this, which are more prone to droughts. And so therefore people are directly impacted. But let us say you live in a place where you don't often see droughts. But listen, you get your bananas, you get your apples, you get your tomatoes and so on from a region which is affected by drought. And all of a sudden you realize that, okay, there's not so much bananas on the markets anymore. There are not so much apples on the markets anymore. And apart from that, the prices have risen. So it doesn't affect you directly, but here's the indirect impact. Or otherwise, we could use another example. People live over there and they're suffering from a drought, you know, and they need to live. They need water. So they come over by you. Here you have a migration problem. So drought affects us all in one way or the other. Thank you for listening to this lecture. I would like to remind you that you should read the necessary basic material. The reason why you have to read this is because this lecture is just a sort of introduction. You would read and get more information. You should read also the additional materials that we recommend in the course if you want to know more about drought. You can contact us, as I've said before, via this email or by telephone at any point in time when you have a difficulty, you have a question, and we guarantee that that question will be answered within 48 hours. And finally, we'd like to ask you again to Share this course with your friends, with those people in your network, because drought is everybody's business. Until next time, I am Richard Byron Cox.